Cost of living, before we get to anything else. I want to start with cost of living tonight because one of the indices about how tough people are doing it are the number of people who are having to take more than one job to help pay for the basics of life. These are the people who may well get benefit here or there from things like family tax benefit, A or B, but the reality is that many of these people need the second job because it's the only way to get enough money to pay for the bills that all now cost more than they did 12 months ago. Now, this is a political point that when the current Prime Minister was the wannabe Prime Minister, he believed was an indices that showed just how many people were suffering. Now, remember, we have been hot on the tail of this bloke and Grim Jim, his treasurer, because they promised the world, but they have delivered 4/5 of bugger all. In fact, for most Australians, things have got worse. Not to mention decisions of increasing taxes on 10 million people by taking $1,500 out of their tax returns because they think they're better with your money. But this was Anthony Albanese talking about people having a second job when it was a political weapon on his way to becoming Prime Minister.
So many people are doing it just so tough. 500,000 Australians are working 3 or more jobs. We have 500,000 Australians who are working 3 or more jobs. Now, they're not doing that out of choice.
Now, when he was making those comments, the number of people who had more than one job in Australia was 828,000 people. These numbers come to us via the Bureau of Statistics. That was the same quarter in 2021. Well, today, just like inflation, just like interest rates, it's gone up. Now, this was a crisis in May of last year, but now it's nothing to see here. The number's gone up by more than 120,000 people in just a couple of years. We were at crisis levels in May of 2022, or what the hell is almost 1 million people. That, in actual fact, is now a record for the number of people who have a second job in the country. Again, the fake concern of this bloke, who knew that there was a certain series of red buttons that he needed to push to somehow get a different result than the Labor Party got in 2019. So they went oh so personal, of which they continue to do to this very day on the former Prime Minister and all things about the former government. The Australian people made their decision that it was time for a change. But guess what? The promise of change has only been that everything gets worse. Yet Anthony Albanese will turn around and say, when it's the Great Barrier Reef, which was getting better before I was elected, that's our fault. We can claim that. When it's power bills that are continuing to go up, oh, that's the other guy's fault. Never forget their promise. Anthony Albanese tweeted it from his own social media accounts, that a Labor government will lower the cost of living. And that was May. Followed, of course, by an entire year and now a couple of months as we now make our way into August, everything is more expensive. Oh, it's slightly less more expensive than it was. Garbage. As has been pointed out by the Liberal Party today, interest rates have increased 11 times under this bloke. Your gas price is up 26%. Your electricity price is up 13%. Despite all the rhetoric, your childcare is up 9.5%. Housing up 8.1% and food is up by 7.5%, all of which well and truly above inflation. My frustration with Anthony Albanese is not that he's from the side of politics that I obviously don't support. My frustration is that he lied to get to the most powerful office in the country. He raised the expectations of the most vulnerable people in our community in order for him and his mates to become more powerful. That's the reality. Now, some may have said that I was too harsh in the first 6 months of the government. What could they possibly do to turn things around? Well, how long does the forever honeymoon go for? At what point do people in Australia start to realise that this bloke was a fraud? That this bloke was all about achieving a political goal for himself, power for the unions, and then his political strategy for the next few years would be vote for us because we're not them. Knowing that the Greens would always be there for preferences, the Teals would stop the Liberal Party from getting anywhere near 76 seats. But no one's life would actually get better under his watch. That's what frustrates me every day. It annoys me every day. Because I can't stand when people take other people for mugs. I can't stand when people talk down to people. And I can't stand when people flat out lie about what magic they can possibly do.